Yes, indeed, folks. You are tuned into WoW Radio. My name is Total Biscuit, and this is Blue Please. And as promised, I have a very special interview for all of you. Yes, indeed. The one and only Fargo, also known as Dave Kosak. He's from GameSpy, and I'd like to give him the opportunity to introduce himself to you.
Hello, Total Biscuit.
Hello
hey, actually, I really wanted to know what the story is behind the name Total Biscuit.
Story behind the name Total Biscuit.
I have to think you were sitting there and you thought, biscuit! And then you thought to yourself, no, not biscuit enough. And then you went the next level.
Yes, evolving all the way through to the epitome of what a biscuit could be. That sounds exciting. Unfortunately, it was actually stolen from a Terry Pratchett novel, so I'm sorry to disappoint you there. Oh well, never mind. We can't all have exciting names like Fargo. Now, speaking of Fargo, who are you? Introduce yourself to the listeners, just in case there are some, very, very old souls, or otherwise we've got a few hermits living in the mountains and really don't know who you are, so tell them.
So my real name is Dave Kosak, and I'm an executive editor for GameSpy.com. I'm actually one of the Games founders. I moved out to California some 11 years ago now, and we just started up a company. We just loved playing Quake online was how the company started, and we thought about, what can we do with this? And we started websites, we started playing QuakeCom, and eventually started doing software. We started doing technology for online games, and pretty soon, we're GameSpy.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And as I recall, you've got pretty big now.
So we merged with IGN in 2003, I think. So that pretty much made us the biggest web gaming network. And then if that wasn't big enough, then we got bought by what I affectionately call the Man. And I think 2005 or 2006, News Corp came along and said, we like the internet. And they bought us and MySpace at almost the same time. So so that's craziness. Yeah,
so you've become something of a media mogul now then.
Somewhat. Rupert Murdoch signs my checks. That's a little weird for me, but I'll take it.
Yeah, that could freak you out. Never mind.
We call him Uncle Rupert around here.
I'm sure he very much appreciates that. Now,
yeah, he's going to fire me now that that's on the air.
Oh, dear. Oh, well, never mind. It don't work for us. We don't pay as well, but we have a bit of fun. Now, Flintlock. You're on here to talk about Flintlock. Now, introduce Flintlock for those of us who haven't had the pleasure of reading it.
Absolutely. So, back in 2004, when shortly after World of Warcraft came out, I started a comic on GameSpy.com. Readers know I do a weekly column called Planet Fargo. In fact, I'm doing the Team Fortress Olympics is this week's topic. I did a couple columns about World of Warcraft that featured a certain dwarf named Flintlock, and he caught on. The character was really popular, and people liked what I was doing with it. I was having a lot of fun with it, and plus I was playing WoW like 24 hours a day. So I thought, hey, why don't I, pretend I'm working and actually make this a strip? So around 2005, we launched it as a daily comic and posted Flintlock on weekdays until around 2007, and we can talk about how it petered out. But so recently what we did is we took the archives of Flintlock and republished them, and I'm back in the saddle, so to speak, and we're kicking up a new comic. It was popular enough. We're gonna go back and start it up again. So kind of doing the media tour here, talking to everybody about the comic, giving fans a chance to kind of voice out what they thought about it, and then going forward with a new strip.
Sounds excellent. Now, your comic's kind of unique in the fact that it seems to have been recorded live, as it were. Now, that makes no sense in the concept of comics, but from what I could see from reading it, and I used to be a big Flintlock fan back in the day, it seemed to me that you had various characters pose in game, and you took screenshots and then added speech bubbles. Is that how you actually did it?
Still frame machinima, I guess you would call it. That's how I originally did it. So you can do a lot with that. I think it's a credit to the Blizzard's animation team that the characters are so expressive that you can take screenshots of the /talk animation and make it look like they have any expression on their face. So I did that for a while. And one of the fun things is reading through the script and trying to guess where I was doing nothing but pure screenshots and where I started to fake it and where I started to get crafty and do other things. So for the first, I'd say 6 months of the comic or so, it was all screenshots. Sometimes, I posed the characters, took a lot of screenshots of them, and sometimes just crop them out to put them in different situations. But and then eventually I started. I discovered the World of Warcraft model viewer that a bunch of your listeners are probably familiar with, which is awesome, by the way. And I started using that, and that allowed me to pretty much pose any pose I wanted, use any gear I wanted, and then creatively it really took off. So it's fun to kind of go through the archives and find out when I discovered it, and you can start to see the whole strip kind of takes on a new life as we can do more and more with it.
Yeah, now, wouldn't drawing it have been a hell of a lot easier?
Yeah, you think so? Finding an artist is hella hard, as I discovered, and I don't have necessarily the artistic talent to really convey the majesty of the Warcraft world with my crude stick figures. So I started using screenshots because that's easier for me, and I'm pretty handy with Photoshop, so I was able to pretty quickly produce some comics this way, and I kind of got a rhythm with it. I can crank them out pretty fast. So I think it's easier to use the screenshots, and I wish I had an artist to prove me wrong.
Yeah, well, tell me about the last panel then, because that looks a little bit arty to me. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, for the last, what happened was since founding GameSpy, I've moved around different departments in the company since we founded. I did the marketing for a while. I did marketing for our technology. I did all of our web development for a while, and I decided to try a new job over in the digital distribution department there, where we run File Planet and Direct to Drive, and that just didn't give me time to do the comic, the editorial feature anymore. So what I was looking for was an artist to really take up the torch and do the art, and I would just do the writing. And wow, it was really hard. And I searched for like 6 months, and I found a couple good candidates. And if you actually read through the archives now, in my commentary section at the bottom, I actually describe the artists that I found. One of them, named Aaron Mundell, just did a fantastic kind of curvy, artsy drawing of the characters that I really liked, and then she got married and got a job all of a sudden, bailed at the last minute. Yeah,
real
failure.
Getting in the way, as always.
Always. And then the other guy I got, his name was Reese. I think it's pronounced Reese York, and he's actually like a professional comic artist. He's actually done some coloring for big comic book companies. I was really excited to work with him, and we had all kinds of plans, and we were doing all kinds of things. So the last frame of Flintlock was actually kind of teasing people that, hey, we're going to change style, and we're going to do a new thing. And then, the internet's weird because sometimes people just disappear off the internet, and just all of a sudden I lost contact with Reese. He didn't get back to me. I don't know what happened. He didn't return the forms so that we could pay him for the work he did. I don't know. He just disappeared. I thought, maybe he got into a car accident. I really had no idea. And that was unfortunately the kind of ignominious defeat of Flintlock. Was my artist disappeared. And it turns out I believe he's okay. I did see him pop up later.
Yeah, do you think that maybe was a little bit of a blessing in disguise there? Because you know how the internet is. You've been around on it long enough to know that people really can get very, very violent regarding change. I mean, I'm sure you've seen Yahtzee Zero Punctuation. He changed his intro and the entire internet suddenly explodes with nerd rage. Do you think that maybe just keeping the same art style is probably for the best?
Yeah, I did get some nerd rage, actually. A lot of people didn't like they looked at one frame and said, don't like it. And I was just kind of blown away. I'm like, man, you haven't even got to know this guy yet. And I think his art style was different. I think it would have worked. I think people would have come around and really started to enjoy it. We could have done more with it because it would have been our own art. We really could have done all kinds of things. But people loved the screenshots, and that always kind of surprised me that crudely photoshopping a cowboy hat onto one of the characters was really, people found that really funny.
I think probably some of the funniest stuff is the stuff that you're closest to and you see on an everyday basis. A lot of comedians do use that as a kind of technique. So I suppose that must work for some people.
Yeah, and you can absolutely relate to the characters because there they are. That's exactly what you see in games. So, yeah.
Well, let's talk about the WoW fan scene in general then, because certainly you're not the only comic out there. In fact, there are loads of them. There's loads of comics, fanfics, all kinds of things. Heck, we even managed to find a radio station. Now, why do you think it is that WoW, more than any other game, seems to spawn these fan-created products? I mean, is it just the sheer number of players, or is there something else at work there, do you think?
Well, it's definitely the sheer number of players. I mean, that kind of bubbles things to the top. I think another big thing, and not a lot of people talk about this, is that World of Warcraft is so abstract. It's not trying to be photorealistic. It's very cartoony in a lot of ways. That just makes it feel more creative. It feels like you can do more with it. It feels like more artists can play with it because it's not trying to be photorealistic. It's not trying to be EverQuest 2. If you tried to do an EverQuest 2 comic, you'd basically have to try and draw photorealistic, or you wouldn't feel like EverQuest 2, right?
Of course,
Yeah, but with World of Warcraft, it kind of I don't know, it feels artsy. I think there's more creative people can kind of latch onto because it's not real.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good. I like that. That sounds very intelligent. I think you came off very.
It's important to sound intelligent, regardless.
Yeah, exactly. Just bluff it. Go for it. Now, do you actually read any other WoW comics, or have you read any in the past? Maybe taking some inspiration.
I'm always scared to read other comics because then I might, if I post something that's similar, everyone will jump down my throat. There's been a couple that I've trawled through. Now I'm blanking on the name of one of my favorites, which is killing me. Had the Shadow Priest burning orphanages.
That was Looking for Group, wasn't it?
Yes, LFG. Yeah. LFG was pretty good.
Yeah.
I liked LFG a lot.
Fun. So, are you still an active WoW player?
I am, yeah, actually.
And what do you play?
Let's see. So the characters in the strip are, my main characters. So Flintlock is an actual character. Yeah, if you go on Uther, you'll see a level 70 Flintlock running around.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's obviously a warrior, and a poorly played warrior most of the time. And then my other main is a Horde Shadow Priest, and I'm cruising him through the Outlands right now. Let's see. Of course, you got to have a Huntard. So I got a level 45 hunter cruising around, and a few others at level 20 or 30. I play socially. I don't really power level through it. So a lot of times I have people over to my house. We have a LAN party. And we just hang out. So I don't necessarily power through the game, and there'll be a couple gaps where I don't play for a couple months, and then I get back into it. So.
To be honest, it seems like the best way to go. Really, the last thing you want to do is burn out and end up hating the game.
No, exactly, and I see a lot of that. I don't know. I guess a lot of like the hardcore fans are sometimes the harshest on the game, and I'm like, dude,
yes.
You play 30 hours a week. How can you say you hate the game?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I think half of it is maybe that they're just a little bit too harsh and they expect the world, and then the other half is that they just want the game that they spend so much time in to be better, and that's their way of showing it. We kind of do it quite a bit, and I think Blizzard's got the idea, but yeah, some people are just downright unpleasant, considering they're supposed to love the game.
It's a very, very, any MMO is a very, very complex beast, so if you spend enough time with it, you're going to see all the little flaws, and I think, to Blizzard's credit, and I think we're going to talk about this later, they do a good job of addressing the kind of things a hardcore gamer would complain about, while at the same time addressing the things that a casual player really wants to see. They kind of try and keep both audiences happy, and maybe not everybody's totally pleased, but I think they do a pretty good job of spreading the love.
Yeah, I think so. Well, someone in your position must be exposed to a lot of different MMOs, so why are you sticking with WoW?
I stick with it in the sense that I'm still playing it, but I jump around. I play a lot of games, and I call it, quote unquote work. I'm like, sorry, honey, I got to work tonight. So I played a lot of. Well, you named the MMO, and I played it for a while. So I'm pretty picky, though. I played Conan for a few weeks. It wasn't really for me. I played Pirates of the Burning Sea for a couple of months. I really enjoyed that, but it's also not too long before you plumb the depths of that game, and then you kind of move on. Similar with Tabula Rasa. I really love Tabula Rasa, but I got a real City of Heroes vibe from it, in that it was really fun for a while, but then it was kind of repetitive, so you didn't really get drawn into it. But yeah, I play a lot of things. Playing the Warhammer beta right now.
Yeah, join the club.
Yeah.
Although I don't think we're supposed to talk about that, are we?
No, I was going to say I can't really give details, unfortunately. But actually, we were allowed to blog about that on GameSpy. We did get a little... so you can read our GameSpy's opinions of it, and some of my opinions are on there, too, if you go to GameSpy.com. Look at the plug! Look how I worked that right in!
Oh, yes. Plug it right in there. Let's get it done. Now, what do you think it's going to take to knock WoW off its pedestal? And aside from Warhammer, are there any MMOs coming up that you think might be up to that challenge?
Well, realistically, knocking it off its pedestal, I don't think that a product could come out that would make 10 million people start unsubscribing. I think if you look at any games, and just look at the history of MMO games, Ultima Online, did anything knock it off its pedestal? Well, EverQuest came out, and that got a lot of fans, but it's not like Ultima ever had a precipitous drop in subscribers. It's the real question is, when will WoW hit its peak, and then when will it start trailing off? That's a good question. I guess we could kind of scratch our beards on that one for a while, but I don't think any game will knock it off its pedestal. I think some game will come along and it's going to get a lot of attention. Some game maybe going to get 2-3 million players, and then everybody will think of that as the game, and the hardcore players might think of that as the game, and everybody for years since will be surprised to look at WoW and say, "Wow, they still have 7 million players. How did that happen?" Still have it, WoW is old news. Sure, it has 5 million players playing, but it's old. It's 10 years old. Do you know that Ultima Online still has over 100,000 people?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's not even counting the private shards that are running all over the place.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's probably might even double the number. But so if you look at that, I mean, we can go 10 years in the future. With 2014, WoW will be 10 years old, and if you look at it as a percentage of its peak, it'll still have, even if it peaked right now, it would still have 5 million players in 2014. Absolutely. That just blows my mind.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy, isn't it? Now,
and I don't think it's peaked. So.
Yeah, you may be right there. Now, after the break, we will be trying to get as much secret information about what's coming up in Flintlock and your other projects as possible from you, then taking some listener questions. But I believe you've got a track for us today, one of your personal favorites.
Absolutely. I think this one is the dropped in to see what condition my condition was in.
Yep.
Is that right? Yeah. So this one's from the Big Lebowski soundtrack, and I know you guys were listening to death metal before the show started. There's a total change of pace. But believe it or not, it's, of all people, it's Kenny Rogers singing about like a total drug alcohol bender, and I'm like, what? This is Kenny Rogers? It's fun. It's a fun one.
Absolutely. This is Kenny Rogers, just dropped in, and we'll be right back after this with more Fargo than you can possibly imagine.